All right. So the time that we're living in right now, it is probably the easiest time to actually start a company. Like if you have honestly a couple $100, you can throw up a website, you can register a business, and you can sell a product. Like that's how quick and easy it is, where it wasn't that easy in the past. But the question is, should you? And I think when you start to define that, I think it's important to look at the people that you know, the businesses that have ended up being successful, or just the businesses that you respect, either one. Did those founders start the business intentionally? Did they kind of fall into it? Was it one of those situations where it's went, oh no, I just did this on the weekend and then people just kept showing up and kept asking for more and it just kept going? That, what's really interesting about that scenario is that's somebody just solving a problem. And that's what I think a lot of people forget about business. Business is not making money. Business is solving problems. And most of the time the money comes from the bigger the problem and the easier it is to solve, generally the more money that comes with it, or the scale of the impact generally is reflected on money. Not the entire case across the board, but for the most part, you're solving big problems and or small problems, either one. It's a problem solving exercise though. And when people go through this, I think when they go to set out to start a business, a lot of it is centered around, how do I make something that's going to make me money so that way I can, live on my own, dictate my own life, go where I want to go, eat what I want to eat, and kind of do whatever I want. But that's an interesting one. So if anybody has run a business, they'll know that you kind of end up, it kind of goes the other direction. You actually gain less freedom and less time, and mainly because you're building something. I mean, I kind of look at building a business essentially like you have a small pet at home that you're trying to kind of help grow up, a puppy up to a full dog. It's like there's steps along the way where they rely on you more. You're able to kind of say, hey, you're kind of off on your own now. Like that's very much similar to business. So when you're first starting out, it's kind of all hands on deck. It's how do you get this thing to be at a point where it is successful? And that on-ramp can be really short. It can take decades. I mean, it really depends on the company, the business model, how much you need to put into it, all those kind of factors. But most importantly is the why the business exists. And I think that is a really important thing to consider as you kind of go about creating a new idea or a new concept. It's why are you doing it? And if it's just to, kind of make ends meet, I'd call that a side hustle. But if it's a business, if it's a entrepreneurial idea, it's something you want to build, that pursuit, I mean, that's going to be something you're doing no matter what. I mean, I had mentioned that what's the thing you kind of do at 2 a.m. I mean, that is kind of this scenario. It's how do you wrap a business model around that concept or that idea or that problem that's being solved? And I think a lot of this process has to do with really going inward and kind of trying to figure out what drives you. What do you want to do at the end of the day to impact the world? What legacy do you want to leave? And how do you want to spend your time? Because at the end of the day, work is work. I don't think it's ever going to disappear, meaning that even in this time of AI where everyone's like, we're all going to be free to do whatever we want and all this stuff is all going to be fixed. They kind of said that about the internet too. They said, all these computers are going to do all of our work for us and we won't have to work anymore. And here we are. So it could go faster than previously with the internet. It may ease some of the processes that maybe we don't enjoy, but the idea of pursuing something and working at building something, I mean, that's fundamentally not going to really disappear, because that's what inherently makes us human, is some sort of goal. I mean, biologically, we come from the background of literally just trying to survive. And that biology doesn't get rewired just because there's a software tool available. And so when you start to look at kind of the why you're doing your business, just get really clear on that. Know exactly what problem you're solving. And I'm not going to call it the elevator pitch, but it should be as simple as, I am solving this problem with this solution. Like, it should be that simple. The nuance and stuff, that's your expertise. That's your approach to the market. That's the product. that's kind of the next step. But the first one is just, why would you even found it in the first place? And I guess, what's the difference between a business that kind of works for you or a business that you work in? So oftentimes they say you want to work either on the business or in the business, and generally on the business is the better one, but especially when you're starting out, you got to be really in the business. But it also helps you understand all the different layers that are involved. But the main difference really is down to the organization and the systems that support it. And I'm not talking software. We're going to get into that a little bit later in some other episodes about like kind of how to approach software in this rapidly changing environment of AI and everything and automation, and what do you use and will be obsolete in 6 months. Like all that I'm going to dive into in another episode. But this one's mainly around how to think about it. Because it's way too easy to bolt on all these tools and solutions, and I can go faster and this and that and make a huge list. But whether we go into more of an AI-driven economy or a human-driven economy, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to simplicity. And how can you distill your business model down to the smallest, most simple format with the least amount of interactions between the things that you have to do? So for example, if you have something that takes 10 steps, let's call it make a video for social media. You have to plan the video, you have to shoot the video, you have to edit the video, you have to edit the video 4 different formats, you have to load it into social media, write captions for each one, you have to send it, then you got to comment, and then you got to plan the next one. I mean, that's 9 steps on planning the next one, but we'll call it 8. If you can take that process from 8 steps down to 3 or 4, that's a 50% improvement. And so like when a lot of these bigger companies are going, hey, we're really trying to grow more. A lot look outward into, more sales, more things. But also, if you kind of look at the inside of the business, how much bloat is there? How much inefficiency is there across the board? I mean, I spend a lot of my time figuring out how to make something most efficient while also allowing for full creativity. I mean, the other problem that I'd say with, software, if I were to hit the point one time before we shoot another video on this, it's a lot of project management software is made so you can basically manage projects, but way too many people spend time managing the project management itself. And then you just get into this rabbit hole, the more things that stack on top of it. And so before you even start the business, you start really going after things. What is the most simple thing that will make the business function? Meaning, you will probably need a website. You will probably need some sort of payment, whether that be integrated into the website, whether that be invoices. You need to have that set up so that way you can collect it. And then you need some sort of product. And whether that be a physical good, whether that be a digital service, doesn't matter. You need a product. You need a way to sell it, and then you need a way to process the income that comes with it. That's the most essential part to the business in terms of the operations side of it. So keeping that as simple as possible, really important, because the more you go, well, they have to go here to do an invoice, and then once the invoice goes here, we're going to upload it here, and then we're going to send them that. Like, those are steps that you don't need to be spending your time on, especially now because you're trying to start a business. So keep it simple. That's going to be the easiest approach for most of these cases. And then as you're going through the process, refine it. Look at your own process when you go through something, beginning to end. Let's just say you do that social media process and you get to the end of that and you go, man, that really didn't go very well on step 5 and 6. Like, I wish that could have gone faster. Well, that's something to kind of look into. Can you improve that process? So if you start with the mindset of thinking in systems and thinking of, it's very popular right now, but the idea of first principles, if you can kind of think through design problems and the things you're trying to do as a business in the most simplistic way, I think it'll block out a lot of the noise. It'll give you a lot more clarity on kind of the direction that you want to go on how to solve the problem. And I think at the end of the day, you'll reach that North Star a lot faster in a very counterintuitive way. Almost the whole move fast, break things. saying that's always popular in Silicon Valley. It's awesome, but I think the original intention of it was the idea of, hey, let's pick this business system up or this product that has been the standard for 25 years, and how do we kind of break it a little bit and make it better? It doesn't mean move 2 weeks you break this, 2 weeks you break that. Then it's just chaos. And so I think tempering some of that information in a way where it's, again, back to the previous video, and just kind of staying steady, that's going to be kind of the way to do it. And I think it's always keeping an eye on what the actual purpose of the business is, the goal. Like, while efficiency is important and while, growth is important, again, that goes back to that mission. What is the most simple way you can solve the problem you're solving and never lose sight of that? So if it's, we'll call tea. I want the most tea to get to the most people in my town. Excellent. That is the goal. So until you get tea to everybody in your town, you haven't achieved the goal. Like that becomes the mission. Then everything else is kind of in pursuit of that goal in and of itself. That's it. When you start a business and you start getting traction, you get a lot of people to start asking you other questions. Can you sell more products? Can you sell different products? Can you sell this? Can you sell that? Can you possibly offer this? Because I think that would be awesome. All of that feedback is really, really good, but don't listen to all of it. Listen to all of it in the sense of take note of it, pay attention to it. Obviously, listen to what the person is saying, because they may be saying something about the business model that could be interesting. But if you start just taking what everybody says and start doing that because you think that'll grow the business, it most likely won't. There was a famous quote from Ford that he basically said that if they had done, what everybody wanted, they would have just gotten more horses. And it was a little bit more nuanced than that. But the concept being, developing a car was a completely different way of approaching the transportation problem. And that's why Ford became what Ford is because they actually solved the problem of transportation and manufacturing in a lot of ways, I guess, in a very efficient way, in a very scalable way, and in a way that the market didn't necessarily see coming. And that was the other thing that I wanted to address, was that you come up with ideas, or at least I come up with ideas all the time. Like, I have a whole notebook of just crazy ideas where I'm like, this would be a great business. This would be a great business. And weirdly enough, some of them have become businesses. Not that I ran, but means it's out there in the world. So hooray. But you generally get a lot of ideas. And how do you know what idea is a good one? Because again, you could go back to the why of, why are you doing this? What's the most important pursuit in your life? But let's just say, it's something that really just isn't needed in the market. It's not going to be a part of it. Like, you do a little bit of market research and you're like, man, I really want to do that, but I don't know if that's the right way to enter the market. Let's say you want to make a cell phone. If you want to make a cell phone, that's a really competitive market. The devices are changing right now. How to get all the supplies. I mean, that's a huge goal, which is a great one, but getting there will take a few steps. And so, like, how do you validate some of these ideas and what's actually actionable versus not in a given moment? That's also a little bit of a get the reps in and learn it. But at the same time, there's a really good little criteria that you can follow to kind of make sense of it. So one is this idea something that will help a lot of people? And what I mean by that is, it doesn't necessarily have to be a nonprofit. It could be the fact that the cell phone, for example, helped the world communicate faster, better, differently. That was a product that helped people. So the way to kind of think about a lot of these solutions for yourself is the problem going to help, or is the solution going to help solve problems that either you are experiencing, other people are experiencing, in a simple way? Because that's the other thing, is friction. And to take a little bit of note from software, what made software work really well, specifically on its huge rise, was this idea of frictionless interaction. How do you get it to be so seamless for the user that they feel like they're just going through technology? Because if you've played with technology for over the years, especially in the early days, it was very, very clunky. Like you had to really know everything that was kind of going on with the software, why it was working, all that kind of stuff. And what made it take off was the frictionless user experience of newer app design, website design, basically that made 5 steps go to 2, right? So in this case, you're looking to remove friction from every single part of the process. How do you make it as smooth as possible? And so I'll apply this to a little bit more of a digital mindset. So for me, in a lot of branding, in a lot of film, and a lot of design, you have this inherent kind of back and forth that happens with the end user, whether it be the end user, the client, whatever it is. You kind of have a vision in your mind, you produce that, and then you refine it from there. Generally, you do the same thing in any other market, but in this case, it can be kind of difficult to figure out what path to go once you're kind of in the weeds on the project. And oftentimes it's worth reminding kind of, hey, what's the problem we're solving for one? But 2, go back to the friction argument. So if it's, how do we make this easier? And somebody's going through, and let's just say it's a website, and they're like, where was that? How did I get there? Well, the moment they said that, that was friction. And so now you kind of take a note in the back of your mind that goes, I should design that to be easier, that process to be easier, that interaction, whatever it is from a design perspective. How do I improve that process? And none of this is going to be perfect. It's always an iterative process, and the faster you can make those iterations, the better. But always do them thoughtfully and then gather feedback along the way, but thoughtful feedback. Again, not taking everybody's direction, but taking little notes where it's super important. And then I think the other thing to consider is, when you're building a business, one of the hardest things is to get distracted by the excitement of how to grow it faster. You'll go to YouTube, you'll go to whatever social platform. They'll be like, my business blew up. I did this, I did that. You should try that too. And all these little nuggets of, call it hacks to, game the system. They might work. I'm not here to say that they won't, but is it a short-term or a long-term solution? And that's the other thing to consider is like, if you're building a business that you're really passionate about, that you really care about, that you want to pursue it for a very long period of time, like life, you're not in a rush. So those short-term solutions, they're not going to really do much for you. Sure, they might give you a little bit of satisfaction in the moment, maybe boost some ego a little bit, but it's not really actually going to move the needle on the business itself. And I don't want to say the boring businesses are the one to pay attention to, but if you notice, the boring businesses are the ones that last the longest. It's the ones that are just kind of charting their own path and they're just going in another direction and they're just going to steadily work there and they'll get there eventually. When you look at that timeline over 20, 30 years of those companies, those are the ones that usually end up being the most valuable in the world. I'll give you a current example right now. 2010, I think, NVIDIA was 32 cents a share as a company, and everybody had said that they were just a gaming company. And now they're back to the backbone of AI and the most valuable company on the planet. And Jensen Huang founded that company and has been he's been after the same thing his entire career, slow and steady growth. And now they're kind of having their moment. But for years before that, nobody even knew who they were. Nobody was paying attention. That's what I'm kind of talking about, where you choose your North Star, you get after it, you simplify it, and then you just get to work and chip away at it, knowing that you're going to get there. Block out the haters. They're not worth it. And just kind of make your way there. And you'll see progress, and it won't be as quickly as you want it to be. It never is. But any progress is good progress. And if you look at that idea of 1% better every day, if you grow something in your company, one of those blocks attached to a string, if you move that just a little bit every single day, you'll make a lot of progress. And that can be in different components of the business. So the other thing I'd mention before wrapping up is the schedule that you keep and the process that you have. You want it to be manageable, but you also want it to be tactical. And what I mean by that is if you're focused on product, focus on product. There'll be social media off to the side. Cool. It's a little bit of a priority, but not really, because you're in product phase. If you're working on accounting or website, you're focused on that. And it doesn't mean to only focus on that, but if you have 100% of energy, 80% of it's going into that, 20% is just going to be going into the business at that period of time. Now, that may change day to day, it may change week to week, but know each day what you're going to be focused on and what block you have to move every day, and just get that block moved. And probably one of the best ways I do it, even though in the next episode we're probably going to dive into some technology tools, I actually handwrite everything on a notebook. And the main reason why I do that is I keep track of all of the things that I do have to accomplish in a digital format, so that way the rest of the team can see. But at the same time, I write down the most important things in here, because when you have to either cross that off or move it to the next day or check it off, either way, you're going to feel some sort of way about it. And I have found that to be the most powerful way that I can continuously make progress. So I always plan out my week ahead, and I will write down what I kind of want to accomplish every single day. And it's not a to-do list. Like that's the key that I wanted to mention. It will seem like a to-do list because you'll have a bullet point and you'll have something written down, but it is not a send an email. If it's send an email, it's send an email to this person because I'm trying to improve the product. So like there's always a why behind each big task that you're trying to accomplish every day. All the little ones that come at you every single day just by running a business, let those come as they come and deal with them the best you can, but they're not urgent. And I think you end up playing whack-a-mole a lot, especially if you're a solo founder and you're starting your business. Until you can hire help, you feel like you're playing whack-a-mole consistently. It's best to let some of the moles just kind of run around and whack the main ones, because those ones won't come back. And so in this case, focus on what's most important, make progress, simplify everything, and then get clear on what your goal is. And then the building starts. So that'll be the next episode. We're going to dive a little bit more. I'm going to share my screen into, how I think about business systems, what you really need. And I'm not even necessarily from an endorsing product side. It's more just what are the basic forms of software that you need to actually run a business? And then what are some of the options that I've used over the years? And I test a lot of software. So generally I know the strengths and weaknesses of a lot of them, how much time you generally got to throw in there. So we'll dive into a little bit of that. But really, if I could leave you with something to kind of think about, it's write down what you want to do. Write it down on a piece of paper. Write down what business you want to build, why you're doing it, what the mission is, and what's the thing you're probably going to either sell first, offer first, whatever that is. And set yourself a goal. When do you want that to be done? And a lot of people are way too bullish on how quickly they can move on something that's generally pretty hard to do. So I would say add another 30% to the timing of when you think you're going to complete it. And that's purely because it gives you more space to learn it, but it also gives you more space because sometimes you explore a product or an idea and you go, oh my gosh, this would be so cool to add, X, Y, and Z feature, but we don't have time to develop that. Well, it would give you the time to really develop it the way you want. And then you can have the patience to kind of go about it. So that's it for today. Until next time.